So then once you've called and scheduled the women, and another thing I should mention is this, there's not a scheduling system also in the database. It's really to collect data and help you monitor the progress, once we're within the data. In terms of the scheduling, we're assuming that most sites already have their own scheduling program, or they've got a book, or they have a way that they like to schedule their visits. So you're going to then schedule her for her first screening visit. So the women who are eligible after the hot flash diary for Form 101 come in for the clinic visit. We estimate about 5 per week, and that's based on 33% of those who complete the that Form 101 in the diary. Again, that may be high, might be low. So these are good numbers that we're going to be monitoring. We don't really know. So these are all estimates based on, they're educated estimates, but they're just estimates, so we'll need to be tracking that. And I would imagine it'll vary across sites, So at the first screening visit, the following tasks occur. And these will be, you'll have a procedures manual that will really spell out the tasks and the details on that. Some of the details on how to perform these tasks, for example, the blood processing, the urine processing, some of those things, Lynn's going to cover in her section. And Mike will cover some of the pill dispensation, the stuff we'll be talking about in a minute. But this is pretty much an overview, and then you'll get some of the details later on. And some of the details will be in the manual, the procedures manual that you'll get before things start. So at the first screening visit, the informed consent is reviewed and signed. I don't have a copy of that, but there's a model consent, and again, that's going to vary by site. But there's a model on the website that is into our IRB. Which is there you're going to do physical measures. But there's information in the manual about how to collect the blood pressure, pulse, and then there's going to be a waist, hip, and height and weight measure, and those will be described in the manual. I put some detail here about the blood pressure. We don't necessarily need to go over, but blood pressure and pulse, height, weight, and waist, hip are not eligibility criteria, but blood pressure and pulse are. So if a woman has a blood pressure over a certain level, she's not eligible for the study. If she has a heart rate over a certain level, she's not eligible for the study. Then there's kind of this in-between that if she's pre-hypertensive, she still has eligibility, and that's the second bullet there. She's still eligible for the study, but you want to recommend that she follow up with her physician. You might say, we have some guidelines that the DSMB requested that we follow, which is if her blood pressure is 150 over 90, she's still eligible, but you want to let her know that and say, you need to follow up with your physician just to get this checked out. If she has a blood pressure of 200 over 120, she's permanently ineligible. If it's that top bullet, the 160 over 100, she's not eligible, but that again is a woman you're going to recommend she go to a doctor. If she gets it under control, she would be eligible. So that's another one to kind of stick away, kind of a tickler file or whatever, and then you can follow up with those women later. If her blood pressure gets stabilized, she might be eligible for the study. So at this point, fasting blood sample is obtained for the safety lab test, and so there's a couple of reasons why we get the fasting blood. One is for safety tests. There are certain things, like I said, like if she has kidney or liver disease, or there are certain safety things that we need to rule out. There's also if she's in that group of women who need their FSH and estradiol, then we need to collect those. And I can say briefly what those are. If the woman has had a hysterectomy, if she's had an endometrial ablation, or if she is using the Mirena IUD, in any of those ways, it's not possible to figure out whether she's menopausal or not without her FSH and estradiol levels. So if Form 101 indicates, there's a series of questions. If it indicates that she falls into one of those categories, we have a form that comes out of the database that lets you know, collect FSH and estradiol on these women. And so then the third reason for the blood sample is for the repository. So there's a certain part of the blood sample that goes to the repository for future studies.
Jill, sorry. How long could it be for a blood pressure to be stabilized and make a person eligible for the study before the screening blood sample, has been taken for, way too long? Is there a defined period for that, or do you need to repeat that sample at some point?
I think it's just not the sample; it would be everything. If her blood pressure is over that level, you wouldn't collect the blood sample. Okay. You would, and then if she wasn't stabilized, you actually start. I think need to start the whole process over, even the hot flash diary and everything. You need to recollect all that, because it could take a month or two.
Right.
And again, these are women that would be early in the process. I mean, if you're month 5 of recruitment, you don't have time to wait for someone to get their blood pressure stabilized. But if it's early on, you might have time. But then you need to collect all that baseline information over again, because it really, because she could go in for a month, get her blood pressure stabilized, and then for whatever reason her hot flashes dropped to nothing, and so you need to recollect that hot flash information and everything. So yeah, I'd say if she comes in, you take the blood pressure and it's too high or it's high or whatever, I wouldn't do the blood sample, because there's no, you recommend that she go to her doctor at that point. Well, one thing I will add is that there's at least one site I know of that requires a urine pregnancy test at every visit. Our IRB does not require that. We're suggesting, if yours doesn't, that you do the urine pregnancy test at the second visit, right before. You have to do the pregnancy test right before you dispense the pills. You need to know that she's not pregnant. But there's probably not going to be a lot of these women who don't know they're pregnant at that first visit, and the urine pregnancy test at that point might just be an extra step that you don't need to do. But again, I know that Ellen Freeman's IRB requires that they do that. So I should say that some of this stuff is modifiable. If there's extra things that you need to do, and you'll need to add them in. This is the minimum that you need to collect for these visits. So at the end of the screening visit, once you've completed these tasks, then the women that are still eligible are going to be scheduled for the screening visit too. And I should say, in terms of the scheduling, again, this is something that you can work out at your own site, but when you schedule the very first screening visit, you may want to schedule the second visit at that time too. Or, at the very least, talk to her about the length of the study and what's going to happen. I mean, again, what you don't want to do is have someone who get all the way to screening visit 2 and then find out that she is going to be in Hawaii for, 6 weeks or something. How you're going to schedule it exactly, I'm not sure, because you also, I don't think that the first screening visit you want to screen her through all the way to the end, because you don't even know if she's going to last that long. But I'd say you probably at least want to schedule those first 2 screening visits, and then at that second screening visit, you need to schedule her through to the end. And you might even find that at the first screening visit, you want to schedule through to the end. I don't know. I mean, you also want to get her, you don't want to be in the point, and we'll talk about this when we get the follow-up, but you don't want to be trying to schedule that 4-week follow-up visit and suddenly find that she's not available, or she is out of the country or whatever. I mean, women will get sick, but if you've already scheduled all those appointments, you know she's going to be available, because she needs to come in at that point to get her second batch of pills. The timing of all this is really important. So the sooner you can schedule all those visits, the better. And if it turns out that she ends up not joining or not being eligible along the way, then you can cancel those visits. But at least you've kind of got it on the books and you know that she's going to be available at those times. So we're recommending schedule as early as possible in the process. And again, you're going to need to kind of play with that a little bit, because the time between screening visit 1 and screening visit 2 is going to vary across sites. What happens between those 2 visits is she's going to fill out another hot flash diary for 1 week. So it has to be at least a week. But those blood labs, or those blood tests, also need to go to a lab, and they need to come back. You need to be able to do that. And there's also a clinician sign-off that happens that I'll talk about in a minute. Some sites may be able to accomplish all that in a week, and you can schedule the screening visit 1 and screening visit 2 a week apart. For some sites, it's just not going to be possible. Your site's only open a couple of days a week, or your clinician only comes in, once a week to review the charts, or just your local lab, it takes longer to get the blood test back, whatever. And so you'll know we have to schedule these appointments 2 weeks apart or something. So that's something that might vary by site. And you should be able to figure that out fairly early in the process, how much time we need between those 2 screening visits, and go ahead and get those scheduled. So that's something that you can play with a little bit, but it has to be at least a week, but I can't imagine anyone can accomplish that in less than a week anyway. So, when she's leaving screening visit 1, you're going to schedule her for the next screening visit, and give her hot flash diary to complete, and you'll also give her visit 2 questionnaire, which is form 102. This one actually is a 14-page form, so this is much longer. So that's why you're giving it to her to complete in between the 2 visits, so she can complete it at home at her leisure. And then she needs to bring it back with her to screening visit 2. If she comes into screening visit 2 and doesn't have her form with her, you need to have some extra there, she would need to fill it out. And you want to get that form 102 at the second visit. So if she forgets it, you need to have her fill that again. And then she's also given instructions and supplies to collect a urine sample to bring with her to the next study visit.